at the aspect of education and the incorporation or the coming in of the competence-based curriculum, just how instrumental would it be to transform the education sector right here in the country? We always say that education is everything. You get it right, you are almost certain of having a beautiful future of the country. And well, I stand corrected, like I said earlier on. My argument was that I've had this conversation with Barack before, which is true actually. We've had this conversation. Then I must have gotten it wrong, because for a moment I felt like, well, and I remember very well, like you took us through the transitions, what was there prior to 844 and how 844 came on board, and now we're getting into a different system altogether. For a moment, I thought you felt like, change is as good as rest, change is necessary.
Absolutely.
On this one, no.
It depends on what change it is, and I think there was a bit of misapprehension on the part of the host.
Oh yes,
because
apologies.
My position remains. When 844 was being introduced, and I was a youthful journalist, we were kind of skeptical about it, being products of the old system. But in the full order of time, I have seen what 844 has produced, and I'm immensely impressed. I think that is different from saying that I endorse this CBC, because CBC is being implemented as the curriculum is developed. I don't even know where it is going. These things in education begin with the global national development agenda, where you have a plan. In our context, we are being told it's Kenya's Vision 2030. Never mind, let's put that aside, Kenya's Vision 2030. Never mind that 2030 is only 8 years away. From that, then you ask yourself, if this is where we want our country to be in the year 2030, what kind of human capacity do we need that is going to take us to that destination, that visionary destination? And therefore, you come up with a very broad rubric of education. You say this is the kind of education that we require. And you are tying it up with the national developmental agenda and focus. Then from there, you say, if this is the curriculum, we are now going to develop syllabuses that are going to deliver that curriculum. Here in this CBC, we are not quite clear what the curriculum is. We never had an education conference to really make proper inroads into it, to see a cabinet white paper, to see a blueprint that is taken to Parliament for Parliament to then endorse it, to see educationists coming together at a conference to break it down. And then now you have the syllabuses. Here we have a situation where the syllabuses are being written as the earlier classes have already begun using that curriculum.
It was a different scenario then when the 844 was coming in?
Absolutely. First there was Professor Mackey, I think he was from Canada, around whom gathered an assembly of educational luminaries. Professor Sifuna of Kenyatta University was one of the people at the forefront. Professor George Eshiwani, the late, among other professionals in education. And we saw very clearly where the whole thing was supposed to go. It took about 5 years from the day President Moi floated that idea to the day that it began being implemented. You are looking at the development of curriculum materials, you are looking at the training and preparation of the teachers, you are looking at the preparation of the publishing fraternity to be able to support that curriculum. You're looking at very many things that must be put together. What we are doing now is like getting in your car, kick-starting it, starting to step on the gas pedal and closing your eyes. Then you leave and hope that you will get where you are going.
Well, the possibilities of getting where it is that you're going are almost nil. So in this case, well, we probably would understand. Are you for the same argument, or you would say that this one is a little bit better? And looking at what has been captured also on the Standard newspaper, teachers are said to get better salaries than the CPC. If there are individuals that have been probably against us going or running with this, even the pilot program, and the teachers should be these individuals, is it a way of trying to get them into subscribing to what is there already? Or, I mean, is there a scenario where we can even have a conversation on this? Because it looks like, well, it's all systems go.
Well, I think Barakia looks at this issue from a policy perspective, and he very clearly enumerates some of the policy challenges that we have, and also the way we have a lot of roadblocks in the in this work plan or the roadmap that we are having with the CBC. But I think I will want to look at this issue from a young parent's perspective, right. A parent whose daughter was among the first group that went through the CBC, and that is grade 3. And from a practical perspective, I hail this program. Reason being, unlike the way I have experienced 844, what I have seen happening now in class is children are being exposed more to practical lessons more than we were exposed. We did more of memorizing, more of reading the history, and more of just gathering information. Mm-hmm. For example, we were doing an exercise, and any parent of a class 3 would know, or grade 3 would know, we were doing an exercise whereby the children were supposed to practically come up with the sources of water. And you make the sources of water, and you demonstrate them, and you practically do them. Yeah. You put them on paper. In fact, at some point, they were required to do a 3D. So if it's a river, coming from the forest, coming from the mountain, okay, it's supposed to be a 3D all the way to the ocean, and all the sources of water. And the other day, they were doing the water cycle. Yeah. Right. And what's good about this is that it is done by the student and the teacher, and then the parent is also brought on board. Yes. And so in the evening, I have to be there with my child, and we have to do it together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the work has to even go all the way to the weekend. Yesterday, my daughter asked me, can you take me to the supermarket? We go and buy colors because there's this work. And when I looked at all the work that she was having, it's quite a bit, and it can't be done by her alone. We have to do it together. So this CBC is involving the parent, the child, and the teacher. And then it's very practical. So once this child has done all these things, then they will not forget about it. Right. Unlike before, where you just learned about sources of water, for example, and you just memorize. There's 1, 2, 3, and then the exam comes, and then you tick A or B or C. So the way I have seen it myself, I think it's a good thing, despite, of course, the challenges that really need to be addressed. And indeed, they are true, because if you don't have a syllabus for, let's say, class 6, and you have a grade 3 today, it means that we are also not planning well. But with a good plan, and if we implement it well, then it's going to work for our kids. Now, I look at it as the way teachers are now much more involved in all these exercises, as deserving for teachers to have a better salary also. And any teacher would have probably resisted that kind of approach, because it also involves them much more. It requires you to have lesser students. And that is a challenge that we have in the country today, because we have fewer teachers and very many children in schools. Okay. The other thing is also an expensive program to implement. I look at it like, for example, like now when you are told to go and come up with the 3D sources of water, really, of course, it helps in creativity, because sometimes when you can't access materials that are bought, then you have to kind of create others in your locality. Yeah. But some of these things that you may just need to buy them. Right. And that means that it's a little bit more expensive. Yeah, so that's my own evaluation and review of this program, the CBC program, as a parent, and in a more practical perspective, someone who is going through it day by day.
All right, we drop it. We cannot make it brief, Mushimi, as well.
I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief.
Yes.
You know, Linda, the speaker said something very important, that it involves teachers, parents, and the child. And then he goes ahead and says that yesterday he spent the whole day with the child, learning.
Right.
You see, children must be allowed to be children, and parents must be allowed to be parents. If you are a career professional, for example, and you have work to do, you must bring the bread home. I don't want to sound like I'm running away from parental responsibility, but I don't want to be tied down the whole day doing statutory work because my child has to do it.
Right.
Children must be allowed to learn progressively. But if you're going to give them complicated things that they're not able to comprehend by themselves, then how are you helping them?
Okay.
If you won't stop me from going to look for bread for my family, because I must stay home and work with the child to understand things that she does not understand, you're not helping them. That is a wrong type of system. That's a wrong education system. If you go to developed countries, the UK, children are allowed to work as children, and children go to boarding school. Now, if you're in boarding school...
You can't equate this to specialization, which happens on the other side.
Which side?
Well, you're talking about abroad and all that. There's so much specialization. So in this case, do you...
No, but we're talking about elementary education, primary education.
Okay.
In the UK, most good schools are boarding schools. Now, if these children are in boarding school, when are their parents going to get them and help them?
Okay.
Education must be simple, practical, and understandable. When you make it so complicated, and I won't say again, a child must be allowed to be a child. If you are engaging a child with matters that she can't comprehend, then you're not allowing her to be a child.
All right. Do you allow me to close it at that?
Not quite.
Right. Remember, we have a bell today.
Yes, but I have to put there a footnote.
Yes.
And I agree with the Deputy Governor. Allowing children to be children, among other things, is allowing them that space to play.
Yes.
They cannot be spending all the time in school, school at home, school at work, school in church, school everywhere. There's a sense, of course, in which school is everywhere when you are learning how to cope with your environment, but it cannot be about homework. Then, of course, the speaker also speaks on misapprehension. It is not true, although I have not been to his house, it is not true that his daughter has been through the CBC. She hasn't been.
Not just yet.
She has just begun.
Right.
And I said at the beginning, it is like getting into your car, kickstarting it, closing your eyes, and setting off. So they are still at that stage, the speaker and his family and all other parents. I am a grandparent now. I don't have any more children at any level of learning, university or elsewhere, and therefore I may not quite know what it is like. But I can say without fear of doubt and contradiction that we are supposed to be training thinkers, not technicians.
Okay.
At some point, there are people who are going to parcel themselves out because they are more technically inclined. And we should be having institutions that are going to be able to hone those skills, to develop and advance them further. In my day in high school, which was about 40-something years ago, we had technical schools. Here in Nairobi, for example, we had the Nairobi Technical School, which later on became the High Ridge Teacher Training College. We had the Kabete Technical School. It's out there on the road as you get to Kabete and Kawangware. Sigalagala Technical School was very outstanding. There was another one somewhere in Eldoret. Of course, the bias here was that they tended to be male-oriented, male-dominated. On the other side, we had agricultural schools, and I went to one of them, Chavakali High School, in those years. And then you had the schools that were teaching the rest of the curriculum. That can be done. You can consider that, because you are not supposed to box a child in some kind of pigeonhole that is of a technical nature. Davy Coit came up with a very good report, which is gathering dust somewhere, that clearly delineated these things and laying some degree of emphasis on what was called TVET, technical, industrial, vocational education and training. And you can see all these things where these different skills are supposed to be developed. The problem we have in this country is that everybody else who are sentenced to power thinks that they want now to come up with their
something
own
that they will be remembered for.
System be remembered for. And even at the bottom of this whole thing, there is money. There's money to be spent, and there's money which people are saying they are going to channel into some avenues.
Okay. All right. The conversation. Speaker, allow me to close on this one.
Just a very brief point.
30 seconds.
Yeah, very, very.
At most.
Yeah. So I think in this case, I'm neither holding brief for the ministry, nor am I a CBC activist. But maybe just to point out is that what I find with this system is that it's much more practical, number one. Number two, it imparts more skills. In terms of thinking, I think is a better system for thinkers, for training thinkers, than just the technicians. And I think also because it imparts more skills and technical skills and also theoretical skills, I think it is really could be a better system than 844, which doesn't do that. The one that Dr. Barakia went through before 844 was way better than 844. And lastly, of course, it doesn't take so much of the parents' time also and also the child's time at home, not really, because like now what I was referring to is an exam they were doing, and that was the exam. And I think a system that brings together the parent, the child, and the parent, and the teacher, parent, and the child, I think is a good system, because again, it tends to also bring us back as parents, back to our children, because having left our children to be on their own and us not being so much involved in their lives, has also brought a lot of issues of indiscipline and such. So really, I think for me, it could be well balanced as a system.
Yes, of course, they would speak of the absenteeism of parents. We have not even gotten to that point where we talk matters examinations. They say at least this is better. The tension that comes along with the examination is one that you'd want to genuinely root out. And, you know, practicability of just implementing this across, well, we'll have a specialist someday so that they can be able to take us through. And today we're supposed to discuss, as agreed last time, wanted to discuss the opposition within, but from the look of things, something else has come in the scene, and in regards to, of course, the shaky handshake, or so to speak. And we've seen the allies to Right Honorable Raila Odinga crying foul that there's some level of sabotage in regards to the handshake. About 3 years into this, the conversation is just how best has it managed to bring the sanity that we were talking about, and just how much can the people of Kenya bank on it to hold after all. And so getting us into the conversation, I mean, the key stories that have been captured on the papers: Uhuru's night call that calmed Right Honorable Raila Odinga. The People Daily, or first of all, the Daily Nation also has the very same story: Mudavadi Moi factory in 2022 plot. All this, ODM leader Raila Odinga's allies have alleged a plan by state operatives to scuttle the handshake. And I mean, we also have this one that has been captured on the People Daily: BBI unity test as Raila allies cry sabotage. And I'd want to believe that the Star speaks of the same. Yes. Musalia, it's right there. Yes, speaks of what?
Musalia's entry at the center of handshake field.
That's another one. I have seen a different paper altogether. And I mean, all these papers are speaking about this. So just allow me to go for some bites that will guide us through into the conversation as we get to hear what the gentlemen of the day have to say about this.
Mheshimiwa Tindi na Mheshimiwa Murunga, nimemuona juzi mkiwa kwa boma ya William Ruto. Mkienda huko, muende huko mkijua kwamba Mheshimiwa Ruto akikifanya rafiki wenu na nyinyi muwe marafiki wake, lakini muwe waerefu kama mtoto wa nyoka. Nomwenya kutia wena kulia mandasi kulero mbole buruta anyoli kura yumuluya bobei.
Webuye Mugiza Kitui hakutuchengea sisi hata wakati alikuwa nini alikuwa wizara wa viwanda na hata Bungoma County hata choo yake peke yake hakuna hapa. Hakuchenga hata choo yake hapa. Yeye alikuwa waziri wa viwanda, hakuchenga choo. Atoke Geneva akuja kutuzumbua sisi. Hakuna. Sisi hatutaki. Hakuna. Hakuna. Yeye hakuchenga hata choo. Yeye wakati yani kwani tunakula ndege. Sisi tunakula ndege. Sisi tunakula ndege. Sisi hatukule ndike. Hatukule ndege. Yeye wakati hakuna.
This is my money. Why are you stealing from me? This man is stealing from me.
Talking about BBI, there's a cabal, and I'm saying this without a fear of contradiction. There's a cabal inside government who are busy trying to chart the way how Kenya will be ruled in 2022. Civil servants have no business at this time, when we have got the Big Four agenda, wherever they sit, to discuss and debate on a weighty political objective of how the succession is going to take place. And we saw it during Kibaki's time, even during the first Kenyatta's time. I urge these civil servants to be compliant and obedient to political institutions.
And we know what these characters are trying to do to determine who becomes president in the year 2022. Those characters are undermining the authority and the goodwill and the vision of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga.
Ukiona shule anaruka kutoka kwa maji akwambia iko joto, ujue iko joto. You cannot doubt what Orengo and Junet are saying about the handshake.
I want to advise our brothers in ODM that do not take us back to those street battles. If you feel that something has not gone right, do not mourn more than the bereaved. Do not feel that you have been betrayed by Jubilee more than us who voted for Jubilee. Please stick to peaceful negotiations. The handshake was done in silence. Even the parting, if it is there, should be done in silence.
Alienda Manyani miaka moja na mwezi 7. Mnaandika chini. Baba akaenda mpaka industrial area prison kule ambapo mimi pia nilikuwa. Alafu wewe ukapo unasema wewe ni hasla na hujawahi shikwa hata na mtu wa kanjo. Ruto, wacha upuzi.
Wakiomba kiti ya presidential candidate mtu mmoja, Raila Amolo Odinga. Wale wanaunga mtu mwingine mkono ndani ya chama yetu waendelee, lakini wajue siku ya mwisho candidate wetu ni Raila Amolo Odinga. Huo ndio mtu tutapeleka harusi akaombe huko mambo yake na sisi tunamunga.
Before we even get to discuss the handshake itself, let's discuss Raila Odinga and these individuals that speak of a scenario where there is a problem within, or there's a problem that is there with the handshake. Many would want to argue that these ones are taking advantage of the fact that they understand very well with Right Honorable Raila Odinga, they have that political mileage. Could it be so? Have they realized that Raila has been so silent and therefore come 2022 they have to push for this to ensure that they also gain the mileage?
First and foremost, Linda, I have said before and I will say it again without fear of any contradiction, that the next president of Kenya is either Raila Amolo Odinga or William Ruto. These other players are just They're flexing their muscles. They're just playing. There'll be two horses. The rest are donkeys.
We'd probably expect you to speak otherwise because you are an ODM member. And so one would want to ask, why is it that you sympathize with the DP yet you are
I say the next president will either be...
Yes, I know. And in fact, this question is not based on what it is that you've said. This question is based on what it is that we've witnessed over the past days.
I want to explain. You see, what we have seen over the last couple of days, and as the former minister said, when you see a frog jumping out of water, the water is becoming hot. When you see Orengo and Junet complain that the handshake has become shaky, you cannot doubt that.
Right.
It means that the handshake has become totally shaky. And why has it become shaky? Because the civil servants in government have decided to make it shaky. You see, in developed democracies, elected leaders hold sway in national decision-making matters. Civil servants are supposed to be speaking on behalf of the chief executive of the country. So if the so-called Kibichos and Matiangis are anti-Raila Amolo Odinga, then they are answerable to somebody else. The owner of the dog is allowing them to do that. So for me, I would not waste my time talking about the Kibicho or Matiangi.
So in this case, the owner of the dog is the president.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
All right. Well, hold it right there, Barack. Barack, just who is this Kibicho man? Who is Kibicho for a moment?
I would look for the owner of the dog.
Yes.
And I'm wondering when it was that Raila Odinga got converted, because he's the one who is used to telling us that when a dog is barking at you, do not waste your time addressing the dog. Look for the owner.
Yes.
We have seen his dogs barking, and here on this panel we are flying over the dogs to address the owner, who is Raila Odinga, because we have clearly seen the dogs. I do not know whose dog Kibicho is, because at some moment not so long ago, the deputy president's dogs, also barked about the same Kibicho. And I did not hear Raila's dogs barking back or or telling him to look for the owner of the dogs. But always there have been those men and women of power in government. There are always people who have their own interests in the present dispensation and in the future dispensation. Certainly Geoffrey Karithi was very powerful in the Kenyatta government when President Moi took over. It probably coincided with the time for Karithi to decide to retire. I don't know. He probably would have been aged out regardless. Jeremiah Kiareni came in, he was very powerful. Then we have had other men and women of power in those places. We don't hear very much about Joseph Kinyua. Perhaps he sits at the back behind the scenes and drives the processes. But we are aware that there was Simeon Nyachai, who was very powerful. Fares Kwindwa did not quite exercise those powers. Philip Mbithi and many others, Sally Kosgei. They have always been these people, Joseph Leting, and they have been very, very powerful. Francis Kimemia until just the other day. Now, the principal issue which allow me to unload is that everybody has a right to decide on who they are going to back, including the president. What everybody else should be concerned about is whether the institutions, the systems, the instruments are right and they are creating a level playing ground.
Are they in this case?
But I do not know. They have told us they have the BBI. And they have told us that the BBI is the silver bullet that is going to answer all these questions. So if the BBI seems to be working and it's going in the right direction, and nobody can stop reggae, then I don't understand what this childish whining is all about. And it's very disappointing that these ladies and gentlemen are telling us things like they are going to go back to the streets, they are going to take Kenya back where it was. Who the hell do they think they are that they can hold the country at ransom?
Shouldn't we be scared?
In perpetuity. When they get to the
Maybe the speaker should be the person to answer that. Shouldn't we be scared in this case? I mean, a redemption process is evidently being hijacked by political circus. Shouldn't we be worried for a moment?
What redemption process?
I mean, the BBI, the handshake was a redemption process last time we checked. But today we speak of it being more or less like a tool for politics, a political tool, so to speak. So, I mean, we are getting confused therein. And when you hear such utterances, going back to what it is that we saw the other day, you know, during the by-elections, Kisii was not so rosy. He will attest to that because he was on ground. Yes. I mean, don't you think it is cause for a worry?
Well, I'm happy for a moment to have interviewed the host herself.
Oh, yes, you questioned me. I hope I've answered accordingly.
Yeah, because you talked about redemption moment.
Yes.
So, and of course, anyone would understand what redemption. Nevertheless, I think in this process where we have the whining, as Dr. Barak puts it, with the ODM senior members of the political party, is very interesting because they seem to be waking up to the fact that actually Raila Odinga is a beast of burden. And they take the president. They don't take the president for his word when he says that in the handshake arrangement there was no 2022 political succession politics in it, and I think that has been very clear. Of course, Raila Odinga has also been saying the same, but I don't think he has ever meant it, even a single day. I think all along for him, he knows that they only say that to disguise. But I don't think on the other side there's any disguise. In fact, when they say there was no political arrangement in the handshake, that's what they mean. But you see, the ODM party has taken that to just be a disguise, and so they think they will organize their politics using the BBI process. Now, just as it is happening to Ruto, that according to the government machinery that organizes or that is looking at the issue of transition, they do not have him anywhere in that work plan or in that roadmap. Similarly, they do not have that also for Raila Odinga. But he doesn't know that. He seems to be blinded by the trappings of power that now he enjoys in government. And you see, what has been happening all along is that the ODM party has been enjoying the trappings of power. And in fact...
But just a minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Is as a Kieraweke man, he is saying that the powers that be do not have Ruto anywhere in their plan. They also do not have Raila in their plan. Say that louder. So the Kieraweke team do not have Raila anywhere in their plan.
Are you not a Raila man?
You know.
I just want to hear it from them.
What is interesting is the way he has actually branded me.
That you're a Kieraweke person.
You know, you can go today.
Are you not? We need to make that clear, by the way.
I am the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyeri. I'm very objective.
You know, you can't run away from branding, unfortunately.
Well,
you see, I was telling the gentleman today when I dropped my poster somewhere online, and the level of branding that was there is one that we'll speak about after again we are done with the show. So I'm afraid as a politician, you do not run away from such.
Yeah, I'm usually branded many times. Other days I'm called this Tangataga speaker.
Oh.
The other day, especially when I gave two MCAs who are opposing the BBI the platform to express their views. Again, that confirmed all of a sudden to everyone. You see, this speaker is a Tangataga speaker. I get it. So I'm used to the brandings, but because we look at things as they are, we make our argument as it is, we get straight on the issues, and that way then we are able to analyze objectively. So in this case, I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan or in the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned, or as far as that government machinery is concerned. And that is my view, really. Yeah, but because of the trappings of power, the ODM side doesn't see this. They are blinded. And for a moment, they are now coming to see that in fact they are outside the whole of this arrangement.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the complaints by Orengo, then compare that with what they say, that all we need is the system, is the deep state. In fact, they're the same people who seem to have elevated the issue of the system and the deep state to a very high level in terms of operation.
Okay.
And they've been very happy about it. But now, when things seem to be working against them, they come on board and start complaining about the same system. I mean, just like a month ago, even 3 weeks ago, before the election in Matungu and Kabuchai and all that, I know for sure these are people who have benefited immensely from the same system, and from the same cabal that they refer to. And so what I see here is hypocritical. It is not, I mean, it's hypocritical what Orengo is saying and what Junet Mohammed is saying. It's very hypocritical, because tomorrow, if they are the same beneficiaries now of the same office they are demeaning today and belittling, they will not talk about it. They will be happy.
All right. Hold it right there, Speaker. And we have seen what is culminating here. They're still pushing for Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who has not even declared his interest in this case. The likes of Joho have declared their interest within the party. And then one would want to ask, why is it that it should always be about Right Honorable Raila Odinga? We constantly have spoken of how unfair it is to have, presidents who want to be life presidents in Africa, so to speak. And here we have an opposition leader, or so to speak, or, a person who's running out there for presidency, who's been there, constantly. And a few would ask, why is it that he would not choose to say, you know what, let me endorse somebody else within the party. Let me try and push somebody else into this particular point. I mean, he's constantly also on record complained about leaders who want to stick to power. Is it not as good as one that actually wants to stick to power, as an opposition leader for life, or so to speak?
That is a question that will be best answered by himself.
Oh, is it so?
And also by those who are pushing for his presidency.
Okay.
But there's no doubt that Raila Odinga is a powerful politician in this country. He's a big player. I would say if you do hierarchy after President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President, the next person will be Raila Odinga. So it's not a man you can ignore when you're doing your political calculus in this country.
But powerful enough to endorse someone as he did with Kibaki Tosha.
Exactly, and that is why probably those who are championing his presidency are people who may want to benefit from his endorsement. Remember, there are people in Luo Nyanza who have become members of parliament or governors or senators, people about shit themselves with Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
Such people will always endeavor to push for his agenda because effectively they're pushing for their own agenda. Aladwa will be very comfortable when Raila is a president or a presidential candidate because then he will tag on his coat. The people in Nyanza, Orengo, for example, in 2017, did not campaign at all in Siaya, but he became senator because he claimed he was out there helping Baba. And therefore, that was his campaign. So there are people who have vested interest. But let me answer a question you asked about the by-elections that took place recently, more particularly in Kisii.
Yeah.
I want to agree, I think it is Governor Paranya who said that there were no elections in Matungu. I want to agree with him 100%. There were no elections. On Thursday, there were no elections. Either in Matungu, in Kabuchai, or Kisii.
Would you have said the same thing if your preferred candidate got this
I would have said the same thing.
Okay.
Because, let me give you the example of what happened in Kisii and Kiamukama. Some of us are not very good in running to the press. Although I come on occasion, but I'm not very good running the press. I did not run the press on what happened to me on Thursday, but I'll tell you, Linda, I was scared, I panicked because I couldn't believe that a uniformed police officer in full glare of the cameras threw a live tear gas canister at the vehicle I was in.
Are you being targeted, DG? I mean, at least based on what it is that we've seen.
That is the question I wanted to ask Matiang'i. Why does he want to kill me? I would like to understand, because if you throw a live canister, a tear gas canister at a moving vehicle and it hit my car right from behind, if it had exploded inside the car, I don't know if I'd be alive today. So I went and sat down and asked myself, when a uniformed police officer in the full glare, it was not a member of the public. It was not a county enforcement officer. It was a uniformed officer. And they were 15. They cocked their live guns at us, and when we moved away, two of them, one threw one, it hit my car with the car that I was in, the other one threw, but it missed, and then one fired up. And then we ask ourselves, is this an election? I mean, when you do that, what do you expect from the bystanders who had come there to vote? They ran away. And then once they ran away, on God knows what they did with their ballots. So I will tell you confidently that what we saw on Thursday was not an election. I think the powers that are decided to humiliate both ODM and UDA for their own reasons. They made sure that in Nyanza, that is in Kisii, an ODM person won. They made sure that in Kakamega, an ANC person won. They made sure that in Bungoma, a Ford Kenya person won. In Nakuru, a UDA person won. Was in Greece, they made sure that a Jubilee person won. So this was orchestrated. But for me, my biggest concern is that we have gone back to the 80s and the 90s, where police will do things that are unimaginable. I saw my brother, I don't know if I can call my brother anymore, but I saw Matiang'i, the Minister for Interior, on Friday comfortably stand up and say that people who went to polling stations and caused mayhem, the people who went to polling stations and caused mayhem were uniformed police officers.
Is it so, Barack? I mean,
why would they act
don't
on
you
the
think the
uniformed police
politicians have
officers?
also become too much from what it is that we see? I mean, technically, what it is that we were treated to was something that was playing out between the police and politicians as opposed to the people themselves. I mean, what does it speak?
Well, that's why, Linda, I'm talking about institutions, systems, and instruments. And I have sat in this same place where I am before Matungu, Kabuchai, and the other places. And I have been critical of the content of the BBI. I have said here, and the viewers and the other panelists who have been around will bear me witness. I have said time and again that we are not addressing the issues that we should be addressing. The thing which is called the handshake was a factor of a flawed election. That people in this country fought, houses were burned, lives were lost because of the perception that there was a stolen election. And when someone was told there's a repeat election, he said, I will not go to that election before the following 11 irreducible minimums are addressed. When you look at the BBI bill, it does not have any of those things there, because somebody believes that he now has got the system and that it doesn't matter, the election can now be stolen because it's going to be stolen for me. Then we are seeing the optics that are indicating that you are actually being sidelined and that you have already put draconian provisions in that which you call the BBI bill. And that if this BBI bill goes through the rest of the stages, somebody else is going to use those laws and not you. Does it not kind of puzzle us to hear ODM politicians, MPs, now saying that we are going to defeat this BBI in Parliament? My goodness. ODM, you want to defeat BBI in
The very same
Parliament?
people,
You want to stop reggae in Parliament? And you have been telling us that nobody can stop reggae? So this speaks to what the Speaker calls hypocrisy. That you have gone and heaped bad things in this thing, and people have been telling you, stop, wait a minute, let us discuss these things. Imagine those laws in the hands of your worst enemy and how you would deal with them. So now we have got, they're being called the Sacred Alliance. It's a rather curious name. It reminds me of the Congress of Vienna. Allow me to digress a bit, of 1814, when the Russian delegate at the Congress proposed that they convert themselves into a holy alliance. They said, let us call ourselves the Holy Alliance. And the British Foreign Minister, Lord Talleyrand, called it a high-sounding nothing. And the Austrian Crown Prince Metternich called it a piece of sublime mysticism and nonsense. I don't know whether this sacred one of ours is a piece of sublime mysticism and nonsense like Metternich would say, but a speaker here has said that the DG has said that the race is between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. As of now,
on the other hand, right,
the optics are clearly indicating that it's Ruto versus Raila, in spite of the fact that what the speaker is saying is also something I buy in, that the system seems to be edging them out. The president has a right to endorse whoever he thinks he wants. If he wants the Holy Alliance, the Sacred Alliance, if he wants a high-sounding nothing, a piece of sublime mysticism and nonsense, if that's what the president wants, he's allowed. The systems should work. President Moi had his own high-sounding nothing in 2002, and it was defeated. So Raila and his team should refrain from trying to blackmail this country and holding us hostage in perpetuity, telling us things like, tutaenda kwa streets. When Uhuru was in Sagana the other day, he reminded Kenyans that it's not only you who can go to the streets. They should read that missive in Converse.
Are we allowing emotions to apply principles in this particular case? And why is it then, as many have argued, that this is coming out in the public domain? Is it, things that they should just fix down there, housekeeping matters for that matter?
No, we are being hypocritical and subjective. We are not being objective. I remember we had a discussion here about 2 or 3 weeks ago with the Tongaren MP, Dr. Eseli, and Dr. Barak here. And we talked about the issues of how we make laws, and sometimes we make laws that are not objective, and then those laws, they come back to bite us. And in fact, we even gave an example of the detention without trial back in 1960s. And you actually put it clearly, the second person to have been detained was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, who was also the main proponent of the same laws. And that morning, we were having a prayer breakfast in Nyeri, and I did raise the issue, and I raised it also with one of the members of parliament who is in that committee, the Internal Security Committee, who also comes from my area. And I remember it became a very serious bone of contention after that. And I was just repeating the session we were having here that morning. And why I'm saying this is because what we have in the laws that are being made at the moment is that the ODM side of government, quote unquote, is proposing certain laws that under normal circumstances they would have been very much opposed to. And at the same time, they have also abandoned some of the ideals they stood for, which would have brought more transparency and accountability in our systems. Now, the only problem is that if they do this and continue doing it without blinking an eye, this is likely to haunt them later on when they actually find that the shoe is on the other foot. But I'm happy because James Orengo somehow is able sometimes to detect some of these things from afar. He can smell mischief very early. Because like the laws that we were referring to here that day when we were discussing were the laws that are now being proposed by the MP for Kiambaa, Koinange, which have to do with criminalizing a political slogan, you know, and we really condemned that.
Right.
And I'm happy because, again, the person who came forward to condemn the same was James Orengo. He said, no, we can't go that direction. Because he's also starting to sense which direction are we taking? What about if we find things now inverted? So it's important that as we make laws, as legislatures, it's very important when we have power and when you can access power to do that which is good for the country. And that's why I support the fact that anyone can support any candidate they want. But what we need to be concerned about is the structures of governance, is the instruments of power, is how we implement our laws, is the objectivity, is having a justice system that works, is having a judiciary that is independent, is also having the independent bodies as independent as possible, is having a police system that is not serving certain parochial interests, and we have something that is objective and serving all Kenyans. Mm-hmm. And if you look, for example, at what we had in the name of elections last week, you get very scared. Because then, you know, democracy has actually been thrown out of the window.
Okay.
Anyone who wishes to contest a position in 2022 must be very, very worried about what we saw. Because if that's how elections are going to be conducted in 2022, if this was just a dress rehearsal of how it is going to be, then you know very well that we can as well now hang our boots and accept democracy has gone with the wind.
All right. Before we come to you, DG, let me just call for Barack to unpack this statement for us. Statement I picked somewhere else. A person argues that a united country with poor democracy is better than a country divided with good democracy. So in this case, he says we could be having the best of democracy, but we are not united. Tanzania could be better off, you know, with their poor democracy, but they enjoy unity.
You know, the reason I'm laughing, that is extreme simplicity of the intellect.
Okay.
Extreme simplicity of the intellect. Mm-hmm. That a country where there's unity and that has no democracy is badly governed, but there's unity. That kind of unity is bad unity. For a start, if there's bad governance,
all right, then there's bad unity. That's bad unity.
Then that unity is bad unity. That unity is like if we unite here and we say, let's go and rob a bank. We leave this place united.
Okay.
And our unity
is not for a good cause.
Plain language is called conspiracy.
Okay.
So if you have conspirators who come together and they unite and they say, let us go and kill Caesar, is that better than people who say, let's go and talk to Caesar, and they have different angles of what they think they should go and discuss with Caesar?
The latter could be better.
Unity is as good as the purpose for which people unite.
He cites the example of Tanzania. He says
Tanzania is not
badly off in terms of democracy.
United. There are people who have come to Tanzania to run in elections. We have seen them being shot at. Tundu Lissu was a person who absorbed about
very many bullets.
20 bullets.
Yeah.
We have seen that there is a muzzling of the press. We have seen that people could not even talk about COVID, about COVID-19. They were united. Yeah, in the petition that they would not talk about COVID. And now we are seeing that they are united in death and they are dying in their scores.
Okay.
The other day we were told about 85 just from the Catholic fraternity alone.
Well, 60-something, so 65, I think. Yeah.
Democracy is not just about elections. Democracy is about how society is oxygenated, that people are allowed the freedom to express themselves, that people have equal access to development opportunities,
right.
That nobody feels like they are hedged in. And when we go to elections, we only go there to validate the democratic governance of society. So that a governor doesn't just wake up one morning and he says, I'm taking everything to my village and The president says, I'm taking everything to my village, and you have a few other people in power who are saying, me, I'm not taking to my village, I'm taking to my family.
Okay.
And they are united that you take yours to your family, you take yours to your village, I take mine. What about the people? So unity is as good as the purpose for which people unite.
Well said. DG, as we come to a close, NCIC is here.
Yes.
You speak of a police force that really is not there to serve the people, but does contrary. What would you say the other time? At least this one I am certain. We spoke of the NCIC Barak. You cannot run away from this. And we said that it is you in particular.
I said, it's helpless.
It's helpless.
It's clueless. It's asleep. It's very partial in its dealings with issues. You look at Matungu. If we had an NCIC that was active, that can bite, we would not be seeing what we are seeing.
Is it so, DG?
Yeah, before I answer that, let me say one thing
Okay.
about a united country without democracy is better than a divided country with the democracy. See, that is the kind of dictums that dictators who call themselves benign use. You know, when you call a dictator a benign dictator, you're saying that this is a good bad person. That this person is bad, but he's a good bad person.
Okay.
It doesn't add up. A dictator is a dictator. There's nothing like a benign dictator. So when you tell me that a united country, in other words, a dictatorship, is better than a divided country, it does not make sense.
So in the quest of democracy, we also have to try and attain unity.
In the quest of democracy, you know, democracy is about respecting people's rights.
Okay.
You cannot deny me my rights and tell me because there is peace, there's semblance of peace, we are okay. But you have denied my right. You see, when you claim that somebody is enjoying some peace, who is enjoying the peace if I'm not enjoying my peace? How can you tell me that I should be happy that Matiang is enjoying his peace when he's tear gassing me? What kind of happiness is that?
Silence.
Okay.
I'm silenced. NCIC. I don't want to sound like my brother, but I am afraid I might be worse because NCIC is clueless, almost useless, because what they read on Saturday is what Matiang read on Friday. They simply changed a few wordings and read exactly what Matiang read. So they're dancing to his tune. They're not doing their job. It is the most useless commission I've ever seen. They have come up with this funny speech that they will be naming, they will be shaming people. What's a list of shame for what? If you commit a crime, you get tried. But you don't tell us that you want to shame somebody because you believe he has committed a crime. Now, if they were listing the 10 legislators who apparently committed crimes in Matungu and the Kabijai, why, and I ask again, why didn't they arrest the police officers who threw a live canister?
Is there space for IPOA? Maybe the speaker can come in regards to that. I would want to believe that IPOA then comes in handy on this one. Do you believe there is enough space and freedom and independence for them to get down into the bottom of this?
In Kibaki's era, and I think there's an objective assessment, the independent bodies were truly dependent. And we saw, I don't know whether it's because most of the people who led some of those dependent bodies really had been hired very independently. But at that point, we used to see a bit of independence being exercised. Probably not to the level that we would want, but at least there was some level of independence. But unfortunately, I think for some reason now, we have the independent bodies kind of being swallowed by the executive. And so it's rare now to see an independent body really challenging the executive actions in whichever way.
All right.
So I think in the current situation, we may not be looking so much for a lot from IPOA.
We are closing it. 30 seconds. Okay.
Let me hope that the NCIC would not be instructed to come for me because I've called them for what they are. Because clear what they're doing is what they're instructed to do.
Should we really be I mean, this is DG for Kisii County, who is worried that they would come for him.
Because they'll be told come for him.
I mean, what does it speak of where we are headed as a people as we come to a close?
Linda, as Barack, I am unbowed.
Okay.
Completely unintimidated.
All right.
I speak for this country until the day I drop dead. So anyone who wants to come for me,
let them do so.
Come.
Good.
Are we going to ages where, there's a time I went to cover, the elections in Zimbabwe. I'm telling you, those people could see the camera and run away, run away literally. Are we really going to that level where so much will be gagged?
Absolutely. That's the whole essence of the BBI. What we have been talking about, some of us, that this is the worst kind of thing anyone has done to the law. And you have seen that the owners, the foremost owners of the BBI, are now getting into panic because they know that somebody else is likely to use the bad law that they have been pushing, and they are very worried.
Well, they argue that it's not
They might
bad.
as well go into the streets just now. They might as well sabotage the BBI, and we have heard them say, we are going to defeat this thing in Parliament.
Well, Dr. Barack Muluka.
Nemesis.
We wait to see. Today we have not spoken about the DP in any instance. It's strange because you realize that most of the times we're talking news is always right there, and I mean, subject for another day. Dr. Barack Muluka, Communications Advisor. John Kagusha, Speaker, Nyeri County, and lastly, Honorable Joash Mangi, Deputy Governor, Kisii County. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Allow me to close it at that as we get to a different conversation. Oh, please celebrate them, yes?
There's a lady there in the Daily Nation, page 18.
Okay.
A lady there by the name Dr. Susan Mambo.
All right.
As the lady I was referring to, we were doing the homework with the kids.
Ah.
Yeah, so I want to celebrate her. I see she has made it in the list of the trailblazers in today's paper.
Congratulations to her. And we celebrate her. You want to condole with the family and friends and supporters and fans of Joski?
Oh yeah, we are the generation that grew up listening to Joski Kiamukuta, his melodies. And then, of course, there was Mzee Franco, who also went away.
At least that one I know, Rabulwazi.
There was Sam Mangwana.
Yeah.
Yeah, the days when the TPK OK Jazz was at the apogee of its artistic performance. He has since gone, and we pray for his soul to rest in eternal peace.
Right.
Let me join my brother here. I also belong to that generation, another one.
Right.
Not his, another one. We are some of those who enjoyed.
Yeah.
In I think in the late 80s when Franco came to Kisumu, and the people in Kisumu,
they pushed the wall.
They pushed the wall.
Yes.
I was actually there. I was one of those. I was one of them. That's how much I loved Rumba.
They were waiting to get into the stadium.
Yes.
And the queues were very long.
Yes.
The crowd was very big. And they were the fellows who do the curtain raising, as usual, playing.
Yes.
And they were not worried. until when Franco got onto the stage, and he just drummed.
Yes.
The first drums of the guitar, and they pushed the wall.
People went wild. Those were the days of Lutumba Simaro Madilu system. The world, we just went crazy.
Mayoni Mayaula.
So we celebrate these Congo musicians. And most of them made their homes in Nairobi.
Yeah.
And I'm told Rumba, Ringara specifically, is liked in Nairobi more than it's played in Congo. I wish they could translate that Lingara music into Swahili.
Oh, so at least we could know what we were
singing. The interesting thing is that sometimes they're even just commercials.
Oh yeah.
It could be a certain soap.
Yes, that's it.
It could
And
be
we
a
are
certain
busy.
kind of car.
Yes.
It could be
Yeah.
a shop in Brussels.
All right.
But
The speaker is out on this one completely.
Probably I would only celebrate Samido and Dick Munyonyi.
It used to be played outside retail stores and wholesale stores
Oh, yeah.
in Kinshasa to attract customers.
clients.
Yeah? But we can talk about Rumba also. Some
Yeah,
other day.
I know, right? I'm privileged to
Next
have
time I'll
grown
talk
up in
about
such
Samido
yes.
and
Firirida.
Firirida.
I will allow you to do that. Gentlemen, before you go, we have these ladies on Skype. Dorothy Okemo, who's the Executive Officer, Access